On November 24th, 1971, a Boeing 727 aircraft carrying 33 passengers from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington was hijacked. The man who hijacked the plane bought the ticket for C-18C under the name Dan Cooper. For those of you who have heard that name before, you probably know where it came from, and you probably know why I'm telling this story. For those of you who don't, you're probably wondering why I'm telling you about the day before Thanksgiving over 40 years ago. It'll all make sense at the end, just listen to this story. Flight 305 from Portland, Oregon to Seattle, Washington took off at its normally scheduled time at 10 to 3 p.m. Florence Schaffner, who was a flight attendant during this flight, received a note from the man sitting in 18C. She thought it was a man just trying to flirt with her, so she thought nothing of it and put the note inside her purse. A few moments later, the man sitting in 18C, a white male, estimated to be about 6 foot tall and in his mid-40s, leaned over to the flight attendant and said, "Miss, I think you'd better look at that note. I have a bomb." She calmly took the note out of her purse and opened it, and in neat capital letters, the note read, "I have a bomb in my briefcase. I will use it if necessary. I want you to sit next to me. You're being hijacked." Schaffner did as requested, and she sat next to him and requested to see the bomb. The man, who was known as Dan Cooper, opened the briefcase just enough for Schaffner to see 8 red cylinders, 4 on top of 4. These were attached to wires coated with red insulation and were attached to a large cylindrical battery. After proving he had a bomb, he demanded $200,000 in American currency and 4 parachutes. He also demanded that there be a fuel truck at Seattle when they landed to refuel the plane. After they finally agreed to his demands, they landed at the Seattle-Tacoma Airport at 5:45 p.m. Cooper let all 32 of the passengers off, but required that the crew stay on board to fly the plane, and so he still had hostages. After getting his money and the parachutes, the plane took off again at 7:40 p.m. Cooper demanded that they fly the plane low, and while the entire crew was in the cockpit, he fastened on his parachutes and traveled to the back of the plane. According to the pilot, at about 8:13 p.m., the aircraft's tail section sustained a sudden upward movement as the aft air stair was deployed. As they finally landed the Boeing 727, at 10:15 p.m., the aft air stair was still deployed, and Dan Cooper was nowhere to be found. There was much investigation, but the FBI just couldn't find him. The first suspect was a man named D.B. Cooper, who lived in Oregon and had a minor police record. But after interrogation, they found out that D.B. Cooper had an alibi and he had nothing to do with the hijacking. However, eager to make deadlines on a radio show, a man named Clyde Jabin, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, released to the public that Flight 305 had been hijacked by D.B. Cooper. Therefore, this hijacker is known as D.B. Cooper, even though the actual D.B. Cooper had nothing to do with it. The wanted poster and everything with the approximate police sketch said right on it, D.B. Cooper, wanted for hijacking a Boeing 727. They investigated this for years, but the only thing they were ever able to find were 3 packets of the ransom cash buried in the Columbia River, about 9 miles downstream from Vancouver, Washington. 2 packets of $100 bills and a 3rd packet with 90. This brought up more questions than answers. How did 10 bills get lost in one of the packets? Why did they only find 3 packets? What happened to the rest of the money? And they never found a body, so it's safe to assume that he got away, because they never found any parts of parachutes or anything. They couldn't find anything. A lot of these math people, they figured, because it was a night of a storm, that they got their calculations wrong and that he landed somewhere else, because they never found any part of him. And you never know, because it wasn't an automatic parachute. You don't know when he deployed the parachute, so you don't know where he could have went. They don't know which way the wind was blowing. They don't really know much of anything. They never found the man known as D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper. And they never found any evidence other than the 3 packets of cash dug up from the Columbia River. So that's why I tell you this story today. D.B. Cooper, or Dan Cooper, was the only man, the first and only man, to ever be successful in a hijacking of an airplane. To get away, to never be found by the FBI, or anyone for that matter. So, he might be dead by now. I mean, it's been 40 years and they said he was in his mid-40s. He's either very old or very dead. But I encourage you to go look him up yourself. D.B. Cooper, Dan Cooper, either way, do research yourself, because it's an extremely interesting story, and it has a lot of questions, a lot of unanswered questions that just never got answered, and at this point, they probably never will be. So I hope you enjoyed this story. If you like this and you want to hear more, let me know in the comments below. If you have your own theories, let me know in the video response or the comments below. If you have any questions for me, leave them in the comments or follow me on Twitter or ask me on Twitter. You don't have to follow me if you just want to ask a question. And until next time, I'm Shadefrost, the real one. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. A few moments later, the man sitting in 18C, a white male, estimated to be about 6 foot tall and in his mid-40s, leaned over to the flight attendant. Damn it! It's a long sentence to get right. Okay, come on, you can do this.